All right, it is Friday, December 4th. We've got a meaningful football game coming up for the Washington football team. We got Dexter Manley in the house, and the big guy, the Diesel, is out in Nemaha County, a little hamlet called Centralia, and he's out in the timber. Talk to us, Riggo.
All right, first you got to stop right there. I'm not in the timber, Todd. You got to go to the Northwest or go Minnesota, Michigan. That's timber. I'm in the prairies. I'm not in the
Okay, well,
Great
see, once
Plains.
again, I'm here to be educated.
You do. Now, Dexter probably knew I'm in the Great Plains, and, there's a lot of grass. It's funny we're talking about this because I didn't realize this. I grew up as a kid always wanting to go to those great faraway places like the Rocky Mountains, which is only about 500 miles from here. But we never went that way. My mom was from Minnesota, so we'd go, 600 miles to the north, Pine City. And so there was a little bit of timber up there, and it was good. It was really good. Minnesota, that area with all the lakes and the wildlife, that was great. But, I was one of those guys full of wanderlust. And so I was always, like I said, the Rockies or, even going to see the giant sequoias out in, California and, the Grand Canyon, always thinking it's so much better. Guess what, guys? Since I've been out here, I've come to, and it's so ironic that it's, as Dorothy said, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. I always thought during the wintertime that this is one of the most drab, uncreative, or that gives you nothing. On the drive out here, I started noticing because everything's brown, basically. The grass, the trees, everything's brown. And all of a sudden, it's beautiful. The grass, I can only imagine, I think the reason I felt that way as a kid was because there was barbed wire everywhere you look. And a lot of that's starting to disappear. There's still a lot of farmland. The prairie's been torn open, and they've been growing crops for years. But if we could have seen this state, or I say the state, not necessarily the state of Kansas, but the Great Plains, 200 years ago, we would be astounded at what you would have seen. And you might have very well thought that you were on the Serengeti Plains in Africa. But the only difference there, and I will say because I've been to Africa, when you saw a family of baboons cross the road, then you would know, no, we're not in Africa, because there were no baboons in Kansas that I'm aware of. Only me when I was in high school. That was the only baboon in the air.
Okay.
But let me say that it's, like I said, getting back to all this, it really is, you can imagine 30, 40, 50 million head of buffalo roaming through here. Now, we're a little bit too far east probably for those migrations. And then you had all the antelope that was here once upon a time. You had elk. Elk was not necessarily an animal you had to go into the mountains to go after. They were out here in the grasslands and everything else. You had the wolves, the bears, grizzly bears, and you had, coyotes. I mean, you had an old ecosystem that you wouldn't believe. And it's just, I feel bad. And I think that's why I felt like my time was somewhere between 1830 and 1875. That's when I should have been on the planet. It's just one of those things where I get a big kick out of camping out. And I have to say this, based on my experiences so far in the last couple, 3 days, which I already knew, but just it's been reinforced. I have so much respect for Lewis and Clark when they went up the Missouri River. And they didn't have any of the tools that I have. And they didn't have, I don't believe they had tents. I think they slept out under the stars every night. And they endured weather far worse than what I've endured. Plus, they were on a river that they had to pull boats up. I mean, like I said, our forefathers, they were pretty amazing people when you think about it and the hardships that they went through. But enough of that. Let's get back to fun and games.
Lewis and Clark, they had no idea it was around the corner. What was the next 100 yards? They didn't know if they were going to hit the Pacific,
true.
If they were going to hit the Pacific Ocean or
a
mountain
spear,
range.
or an arrow. They had, or a grizzly bear. Grizzly bears were something to them they'd never seen before. And they realized that was an animal you didn't want to mess with, even with their guns. But now, they didn't have, 375 H&H Magnums or anything like that, or 458 Magnums or they didn't have any big guns. They had black powder. So they came into contact with a grizzly bear. It wasn't going to be good. But anyway, Dex, you've got a bunch of questions. I'm all yours.
Okay. My first question. I understand. I don't see him.
He's there.
Oh, I understand that, you're in Centralia, and you have a tent or a house. Which one you sleeping in?
I'm not Dexter. You think I'm a? Are you trying to? Are you insinuating that I'm a fraud?
No, I want to know which one. I saw the tent. I want to know which one you're sleeping in.
We just have crap games in the tent. Actually, that's always there. You know, we bring in.
Are
the
you
dancing
taking Brother
girls
Billy's
and,
money?
Yeah.
Well, there's a party there in the tent every night. Like I said, we bring in a few people from Las Vegas. Very, very entertaining show. No, I sleep in a tent. That's where you think I'd be sleeping.
I tell you what, John. I think let's show the first piece of footage of Camp Riggo. And Dexter saw this early, and he started asking me all these questions. I'm like, dude, you got to ask the big guy. I said, this is an annual sojourn for him or whatever. And I said, but he's got more accoutrement. So we're going to play the piece of tape here with your play-by-play.
Hold it just for a second, because I want to say now, there's a big difference between this trip and previous trips. Previous trips, I've always flown out, and it's been pretty much, what do you want to call it, a shoestring camp site. I was able to take a lot of the gear that I've had for years, and actually, I got to say, this is turning into a dream trip. It really is. And it didn't start that way. When we did this show, the other day, that I didn't realize a couple of things. One, I thought I'd forgotten the propane hose, and I had to go to Centralia to buy one. Turns out it didn't work, but I had the one I needed. My lantern hasn't worked. It's a kerosene lantern. It hasn't worked since I got here. So I've hit a few snags, you might say, along the way, but things have turned around. The weather's been beautiful. And so I'm just, like I said, this is kind of turning out to be one of those things I'll look back on because one of the best trips ever made, because I was able to set up, for me anyway, a decent camp. So go ahead, let's roll tape. Let's go to the videotape.
There it is, folks. Deer Camp 2020, Nemaha County, Kansas. There's the tent, and as you can see, I've had solar installed. I think that's very progressive. President Biden ought to be President-elect Biden should be very proud of me. A little peek inside the house there. You notice there's a lot of bottles there. There's a reason for that late night urge. Well, you got that figured out. And then we get over here is the kitchen area, complete with refrigerators. Of course, the stove. We've got our cupboards down below, our bottle of propane, and of course we've got our night light. And over here, of course, is the back blazer. It is the one the girls always like to see. And that is the commode. So you'll see that Riggo's Deer Camp 2020 is resplendent, actually. It's complete with all the accoutrements of home.
I think we lost Dexter. Dexter's so
here.
flummoxed, perplexed.
I'm here. Okay, I can go?
Your turn.
Okay, John, I want to know, you got memories and feelings. I want to start, what do you feel when you're there? At that place where you grew up, in your house, your mother, father, what do you feel when you're back at that place?
Dex, that's a great question, and there's a lot of different feelings that you go through. One of them, it's hard to believe that it's been over 50 years since I strolled out of town. You also realize, the house that I grew up in, you realize, that you're from a humble, you had a humble beginning somewhat. And then you realize, and you look around the countryside, I mean, they have all these, to generate power. They've installed a lot of windmills around here, which creates electricity. And I got to say that I appreciate that they're trying to go, green, but they are a blight on the landscape. It's once again, it's almost like now it's modern barbed wire. It's just something else that fouls the eye. I mean, there's one really you can see as I was driving into town. I'm going, damn, it's almost like it's in Main Street in town. So I have a lot of, like you said, a lot of feelings. And I guess it's, when you go back in time, you think of what it was, and it's hard to believe that many years has gone by. And, that's kind of the best I can tell you. But you have a lot of different thoughts and a lot of moments where you go, oh, that's the place where we were hunting. And, we shot a bunch of pheasants, and I don't know, it's kind of bittersweet memories in a weird sort of way.
Yeah, well, John, you still haven't. You given me a lot of. Can I talk? Yeah,
Oh, you big guy.
you give me actions. I want to talk about feelings. What do you feel? Happy, sad, those kind of stuff. You're happy. You're sad. What do you feel?
Dex, I just said it's going to be the greatest trip I ever took out here. So you'd have to take from that I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very happy.
Okay.
Like I said, there was a few moments when I got here that I will admit, and even on the drive out here, I'm thinking to myself, I'm having, recriminations. I'm going, I'm thinking through it going, is this really what I want to do? I mean, because it's a long drive, obviously. Then you get here and you have these snafus and you're going, oh, man. But it's turned around, and I got to tell you, yesterday morning, there's been, and I slept in this morning because I knew knew he was going to do the podcast, so I didn't go hunting this morning. And I slept in, and I got up, it was about 7:30, got out in the tent, and the sun had just come up, been up for about 30 minutes maybe, and there's frost all over everything. There was no wind whatsoever, and I've got myself a little area that I've got which is surrounded by cedar trees, as you just saw there. And I got to tell you, it was just breathtaking. Now, I don't know if that's a feeling, Dex, but it was it was so great to be there. I mean, the serenity that you feel in this, and there's something great about the solitude as well. So I'm very pleased to be out there. There's no question about it, and I'm having a lot of great feelings, and a lot of it, like you say, there's some of the stuff coming up from the past, but there's
Right.
also a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about feelings, do you get tears come to your eyes when you think about your parents, your brother? I don't know if you have any sisters that all you guys were there and no tears come down.
Well, that's not entirely true. Last night I peeled an onion. And,
Dexter wants tears, man. Dexter's going to make you cry. And Dexter's going to be crying when he comes back and he doesn't have any venison. He didn't shoot a damn thing.
I have to confess, Dex, I shed a few tears last night.
Hey, I don't know. Have you saddled up and ridden into town and settled any old scores with anybody?
That's a great point. Dude, I never thought. That's the one thing I didn't think of, Todd. I didn't bring a horse with me. That'd have been pretty cool. And I didn't bring one of my revolvers. I guess the 9mm will have to do.
You might find that guy that narked on you or the girl that narked on you back in the day with the crossing guard situation. Just might be time.
Now, if I was going to do that, I would have to get the guy that rubbed my face in the snow would be who I'd be looking at. But I have to say this. He took the westbound several years ago. So
Okay.
I ain't going to be able to get a piece of him.
Okay. So what on the and Jack's going to fire up the video here again. So you got some new accoutrements, and so the solar on the side of the tent. So is that to heat the tent? What are we doing?
No, that's just the solar panel that actually you'll see attached to it, those cords right there. And down below, that's the night light that I have, I should say a headlamp. And let me say this, I wrote some stuff down, but one of the most important tool in camp, you were just looking at it, is that headlamp. Because here's the big deal about camping like this. A couple of things, really. One is you have to stay so focused. You have to remember where everything is, and it's just all, it's improv because you're out there, you haven't done this. It's not like being at the house, where you got a cupboard and you put stuff in there and you go, oh, I got to go get my flashlight. Every time you put something down, you got to remember where you put it. And as you can see, there's quite a few things that you have to put down from time to time. So that's one thing that really keeps you sharp. And like I said, when it comes to hunting anyway, there's so much stuff that goes on in the morning that if you don't have that headlamp, the chances are pretty good you're going to forget something. You're just not going to be able to see it. And that's probably one of the biggest, I think, vision is one of the biggest setbacks because it also, when the sun goes down in the evening, it pretty much shut down. And because that lantern doesn't work, that's caused me a little bit of, indigestion. But I do have a backup, an electrical backup, which isn't bad, but it doesn't put out near the light that the lantern does.
But Dexter, he's seeing this video coming in and he goes, who put all that stuff out there for him? I'm like, no.
Well, I can see, and Dexter, I love the way you think because that's exactly what I should have done. I should have hired somebody to set up the camp, and all I got to do is just drive in and say, I'm here. Let's
Here's
go.
your camping porter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was talking about that, I think, on last week, or, at the beginning of the week, when that's the one thing I did. That's another thing I didn't think of is to have a porter. Have him I'm going to be down the timber hunting. When I get back, I expect camp to be all set up.
Okay.
And fluff my pillow. Make sure you fluff my pillow.
Yeah. How much sleep have you gotten?
Now, that's a great question too, Dex. And interestingly enough, obviously, one of the best ways to get a great night's sleep is drive for about 18 hours, and then, and sleep in the car for about 3 or 4 hours. I've gotten some great sleep out here. There's been some real advantages, actually. Because like I said, I slept in this morning. I think I jumped in my sleeping bag at 8:30 last night, and I didn't wake up till about 7:30 this morning, or 7 o'clock this morning. So I got 10 hours of sleep, quality sleep. The only time that gets annoying is, you can imagine if it's like 20 degrees and you got to get out of your sleeping bag and I don't get out of the sleeping bag. I perfected the rollover move, which is where I take the bottle, take the top off of the Gatorade bottle and roll over on my side and put the bottle up to my unit, and then go ahead and relieve myself, put the top back on, and set the bottle down and go back to sleep.
Dexter wants to know what the sleep number is on your mattress.
Yeah.
What's that?
Dexter wants to know what your sleep number is on your mattress.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's probably firm, very firm. But this last night I had a little bit of leakage, which wasn't bad, but it was enough to go, oh, damn, how did that happen? Because you're coming up out of a sleep and you got to do that. But so far it's worked out pretty well.
Okay.
Now, I did want. What's that?
Yeah. My next question is: do you take a dump in the house or outside of the house, or where do you take a dump?
Wait a second. Let this thing keep going. I just showed you the sod buster, Dex. I mean, what do you think I pick it up and take it into the tent? I mean, I'm out there by myself.
Yeah.
You think I need more privacy?
Well, I just want to know, when you take a dump inside, outside, would the bears smell that and come up on you and watch you take a dump?
They could, I suppose. But the only kind of bears I can think about in Kansas are teddy bears.
Okay.
All right. So have you had any encounters with any wildlife yet? Have the coyotes, the wolves, anything? Anybody?
Nothing of a let's say kind of that would be potential to put you in any kind of harm's way. Really.
No threatening.
I mean, I haven't seen any coyotes. I've seen some turkeys. Yesterday morning, saw a couple of nice deer. They weren't chongo though, so there was no sense in even getting too excited about that. But yeah, I saw a possum yesterday afternoon in the middle of the day walk by. But like I said, there's no dangerous animals out here. I mean, I think we talked about that, Dex. If there were lions and tigers and bears, oh my, the big guy'd be sitting right there in the studio with you.
What's the temperature? What's it get down to at night?
It gets into the low 20s, and then it goes back up into the mid 40s. Very pleasant during the day, except if the wind kicks up, and the wind could be a real bugger out here. But for the most part, in the first night I was here, it's so weird. Maybe it's because I was exhausted. I was cold, and I'm going, oh man, I didn't, because I used to bring a second sleeping bag with me, and I threw over the other sleeping bag, and I didn't do it this time. And then Tuesday night, last night, or the night before last, I was warm, I slept fine, and the same thing last night. So, acclamation. And I was out here, and I thought to myself, Dex, you really should come out with me next year. We can drive out together, and by the time we leave here, you will not even know what the hood's all about. You'll be scared to go back to the hood. You'll be a country boy, Dex. Thank God I'm a country boy.
I think that could be a pay-per-view special. Just saying.
It would be. Me and Dex on the prairie. Home on the range, Dex.
All right, so Riggo, on the second video we got, was this dinner you had the night last night that we're about to show?
Yep, this is last night's dinner, and I decided, that's another thing. When you camp, a lot of times particularly backpackers. I'm not a backpacker. I'm a car camper to a certain extent. I had to bring a lot of gear with me, but I made myself some butter beans, and some rice. And, you know, then that's what I was talking about, the onion. I had chopped up the onion, sauteed that a little bit. Then I dumped the beans in there, put a little water into it, put a little beef broth in with that, and then I got my rice going, and I just had one heck of a good hearty meal. Eating very healthy out here.
All right,
No junk food. No
fire it
junk
up, Jack.
Hey, buddy, what's for dinner? Why, get a close
there
up
you-
of that. It's some good old buttered beans. See the woman over there, the one with the auburn curly hair. She's not pregnant as she seems. She's just full of them good old buttered beans. Oh yeah, a little rice too. Haven't got that going yet, but I will. Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't, Dex, you would have had to set, last night we could have been tent mates, or no, the night before we could have been tent mates. Last night you would have wanted to get your own tent.
I know it.
You got to get a little blowback from the butter beans.
So Riggo, when's the shooting begin? When's the whole firing up of the rifle?
Well, that's funny because on Tuesday morning, I can't remember, I think it was, Tuesday morning, that was 2 days ago. I went up, they have a rifle range up over at Seneca, and they got, you know, Seneca International Airport has a rifle range, which is pretty cool. You know, if you're shooting in ricochet, you might be able to knock a plane out of the sky. You never know if you get lucky that way. But I went over there, and I brought a bigger gun with me. I've had, anybody knows anything about guns, I've got a 264 Winchester Magnum and a 338 Winchester Magnum. And I think the 264 shooting 130 grain bullets. I had some special bullets loaded for the 338, round nose, 300 grains, which is a lot because usually if you're going to buy them in a box, the heaviest bullet you can get is a 225 grain, maybe some places 250. Because last year I had an experience where I was shooting that 264 down the timber. I think I probably hit some brush and it deflected the bullet because I'm going, I mean, I got to tell you, I'm not Daniel Boone when it comes to shooting a rifle, but I didn't think I was that bad of a shot, but maybe I am. So I said, well, this is what we're going to do now. We're going to bring in a gun that you can kill a grizzly bear with. And so I got the round noses. If I happen to hit something, I'm hoping that the deflection will be minimal. I'm sure there'll still be some, but if it's Chongo, I mean, it's just like it's like that, what do you call it, plate, waiting to see Godot. I'm waiting to see Chongo. And so far it hadn't happened. But yeah, that's a little, give you an itinerary on the weaponry that I have out here, ordnance.
Okay, John. Now, with the weapons you have, if you had a grizzly bear there, would any of those weapons stop the grizzly bear?
Yeah, that 338, that's one of the more popular rounds in Alaska that they use for bear hunting. It's got a little kick to it, I will say that. When I was sighting it in the other day, I noticed it was kind of whacking my shoulder pretty good, but I've got a little rheumatism in my middle finger on my right hand, which is my trigger hand, and it was killing that hand when that gun came back. But I fired about 6 rounds, got the gun where I wanted it to. But yeah, that gun would take a bear out pretty easy.
Okay, well, now that answered my question. I would not go hunting with you or come to the whatever you want to call it, because I'm a big black guy. I could go up and take a leak, and you think I'm a bear, you might shoot me. So to go to the trip with you, that's out.
Well, Dex, I've been in the locker room with you. You don't have any hair on your back. I think you'd be safe.
Well, it's dark. You don't know that.
All right, well, speaking of Chongo, the big as bad as grizzly bear, the baddest dudes.
Yeah.
Washington football team are playing the biggest, baddest dudes.
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, who 2 nights ago, 2 afternoons ago, and with just the COVID-19 NFL season that is. And John, I know you've been out of the you're out in the brush, you're camping, you're doing your thing. So we'll update you on a few points of interest.
No, hold it, Todd. I've got my little doodly deal with me. I did a little homework last night, so I'm up to speed on it. The first time I think in I don't know how many years that an NFL game was on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Do you know how many years it's been? I mean, it's incredible.
I don't. The game started at 3:40 in the afternoon. It was cold.
It was 3:40.
It was 3:40. It was cold in Pittsburgh. Now, the Ravens had so many players test positive for COVID and guys that did not play. RG3 was the starting quarterback.
Yes.
Lamar Jackson did not even play. And Pittsburgh was incredibly sloppy.
Yes.
Mike Tomlin was
Yeah.
very ticked off after the game at their performance, in which they eked out the win 19-14 over the Ravens in Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh goes to 11-0. Now, the Washington football team game, that game has been moved to Monday night at 5 o'clock that Pittsburgh and Washington is playing. So now, Pittsburgh, they will have 3 games in 12 days. They've got what they just did 2 days ago. They've got the Washington football team. Then they play Buffalo the following Sunday. So they will have 3 games in 12 days. The Washington football team has had since Friday after Thanksgiving to prepare for this football game. So, if ever there was going to be a time for the stars to be aligned and for Washington to get Pittsburgh, on the ropes like they are, it's fascinating how it just worked out.
This is great. I think it's the Joe Frazier Ali. Ali was on the ropes, but Joe Frazier couldn't take him. I like to see if the Washington football team, like you said, they've been playing quite a few games. This is a game to be taken if they're going to be real contenders, the Washington football team. They're supposed to knock these guys out. But Tomlin said that his team played like junior high.
Junior varsity.
Junior varsity.
Junior varsity.
And so that's telling.
Yeah.
I like to see what the Washington football team, what they're gonna show up to do.
You guys, you really outlined. I read a little bit of this stuff last night when I was, prepping for today's podcast. And the stuff I was looking at was obviously just what you said, that Pittsburgh, based on the team that they ended up playing, which, at the beginning of the year, Baltimore was supposed to be, one of the teams to watch out for. But obviously, that wasn't the same team that Pittsburgh had to play on Wednesday night. They were completely decimated, and they barely were able to survive. Now, there's the old saying that, good teams win those kind of games, which I guess you can say. If you've won 11 games, you're doing something right, that's for sure. But are they really the bulletproof team that everybody's looking at like, whoa, watch out for Pittsburgh? I don't really think so. I think they're kind of an up and down type of team, and they've won some games perhaps that they could have went the other way. And I don't want to say they're fortunate to be 11-0, but let's just say Lady Luck's been on their side, and that's what it takes. It doesn't make any difference. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But having said all of that, if Washington's really on the upswing, if they're starting to put stuff together and they're starting to have a good feeling about themselves, I think it could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think, and the worst thing probably that happened to Baltimore, and I don't know if not Baltimore, to Pittsburgh, and I'm not sure, is that they had this pathetic play. They didn't play well at all. And so Tomlin, these guys are on full alert right now. They're on high alert. They got, it's code red for the Baltimore. I keep saying Baltimore. I'm sorry, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're on red alert. So you're going to catch them. You're going to get their best. That's the interesting thing about this. I don't think you can avoid that. If they'd have rolled over Baltimore, they could have been right for the picking. But that doesn't mean that Washington. I'm starting to have a better feeling about Washington, and I have to go back to something that we started to talk about on the show beginning of the week, and that's Alex Smith. I mean, there's so many ways of looking at this. If Coach Rivera would have listened to me, Alex Smith wouldn't even be on the team now. Where would they be? I don't know, but they would be finding their quarterback of the future. But the interesting thing is in this crazy year and in this crazy NFC East, it's all of a sudden that he's become a tremendous asset. It wasn't by design, but just by serendipity. He's he's fallen into the right place at the right time, and you would never have guessed how he got there, because everybody would have thought, well, number 7 was going to be the quarterback. He was anointed before the season. Well, that took about 3 games, and that wasn't the right choice. So they bring in the guy they brought in from Carolina. Well, he probably would still be playing right now, only he broke his leg. So enter Alex Smith. Now, Alex Smith becomes viable because nobody else in the NFC East wants to win the division, and all of a sudden, he's the most experienced. Well, I say, him and Wentz, but still experience. It's still Alex Smith. So, and he's playing okay. And so, if you're trying to basically win this division, and that's what they're trying to do, and see what happens after that, And with the way, just like you saw in Wednesday night's game, Baltimore had half of its team there. You never know. We talked about this about a month and a half ago, that COVID could be an ally for some teams that are so-so, and for the teams that are playoff type teams, but not up there with the big boys. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and I think it'll be very telling, because I would say that, who knows, they got to keep playing it out, because the one thing we know in the NFC East this year is that there is nobody's locked up anything. They got to play the rest of the season out. You can't. I don't think anybody can tell right now what's going to happen in that division and say, "Oh no, Washington's got it locked up," or New York. It's wide open. The only thing I would say
it's going down
is
to the wire. It's going down to the wire.
Well, I think the Cowboys, unless there's some kind of resurrection in Dallas, I think they may be out of it. The other three
here's the
might
latest.
still have a shot.
Here are the latest odds percentages based on computer models, and we're big analytics and algorithm guys here on the John Riggins show.
Yeah,
but this is coming from CBS Sports, and for the first time this season, the Philadelphia Eagles, after losing to Seattle on Monday night, they are not favored to win the division. It's now the Giants have a 43% chance of winning the NFC East, followed by Washington at 27%. The Eagles at 20%, and the Cowboys still have a 10% chance of winning the division. I will say the Cowboys have the easiest path schedule-wise by far over the other three teams, but they're terrible. And we saw that on display, and I don't think there's any resurrecting them.
Well, I tell you, I think this is a good opportunity for that front four to get after the quarterback. Big Ben has been sacked between 20, 22 sacks.
Very immobile.
Yeah, and so I think that front four, if they say who they say they are, then they need to step up to the plate and get after Big Ben. They got a good shot at winning this football game come Monday.
One other stat, John.
That's the game plan right there. That's the game plan, Dex. And then you throw in, I think, who knows, maybe they discovered something down in Dallas. But if you can generate a pass rush and get him on the ground, you're going to keep points off the board. And you get Gibson, you get Antonio Gibson, give him the ball, and turn this into a ground game, because what I've read, Pittsburgh does not have a ground game. For crying out loud, they threw 51 times on Wednesday night. I mean, my God. I'm going, is that football when you throw 50 times? That, to me, is not football. That's
and it was tough conditions, Riggo. That was a game that looked like an old-fashioned AFC game in the dirt where you needed a running game because it was cold, brutal, bitter conditions. And I think they're calling for more of that Sunday in Pittsburgh. Excuse me, Monday. I forget, it's Monday at 5 o'clock when this game is. So one other stat we wanted to point out here that the league had put out. This is since 2004. Teams with a losing record after 11 games that made the playoffs since 2004. You know who leads that stat? The Washington football team. 2005, 2007, 2012, and 2015. Through 11 games, had a losing record and made the playoffs. So it's kind of what this team has done for the last, over a decade.
Well, I'm in favor of the Washington football team, at least to take down the Steelers, because I think they can get to Ben Roethlisberger. As John said, you get to him, you win the football game. This guy's a wuss. He's a wuss.
He's immobile.
That's a wuss.
He is very immobile. So we should.
Yeah, but I think Dexter. I think he could take a punch.
I agree.
He is a tough guy.
I agree with that.
I mean, he's pretty resilient.
I agree with that.
He's always been immobile and has taken a beating. And like you say, they threw over 50 times in those conditions. So hopefully that'll help in the game plan. What do you think the Vegas line is on this game? This is intriguing. Dexter, I know you're not a gambler and don't necessarily participate. Riggo, what do you think the line is Monday, 5 o'clock in Pittsburgh?
I'm going to go Pittsburgh -6.
Pittsburgh -9.5. That's a large number. So that means that the Pittsburgh Steelers are favored by 9.5 points to win the game. And I tell you what, a lot of folks are betting on the burgundy and gold. 45% of the money is coming in for Washington to cover. That's a big number. So a lot of people are thinking that Pittsburgh's going to rebound and after their really shoddy performance. And both Roethlisberger and Tomlin were just they were sick to their stomach of how they looked and performed against Baltimore. So that's a 9.5 points. That's a big number.
And plus, coming off a 3 or 4 game stretch, it's impossible. They're going to cover that spread, the Washington football team.
Yeah.
So, Dex, you're getting down on the game? You're going to go to the window?
What
You going to lay some money down?
Okay, well, John, you already owe me. Did you pay me?
He paid you.
Okay. I tell you what. We'll go
Give me
20.
a bad reputation.
Okay, we go $20. I'm going with the Washington football team.
And you're going to go on to cover, right?
To cover the spread.
what you're
They're
doing?
getting 9.5 points.
Now, I don't know nothing about that. I'm not.
Okay, so
straight up bet.
oh,
Oh, straight up. Gee
Riggo
whiz.
kind of putting you in a
I feel
tough spot
cool
here.
about the thing.
Huh? Does that make sense on my part?
No, it does not.
Okay, and I don't want no straight up bet then. I don't want a straight up bet. Matter of fact,
John was like, Dexter, go ahead and just.
Dex,
yes.
a card laid is a card played.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I'll
think
let you
I'm
have
going to
the
pass on this bet. I don't understand the over and under.
He's in Kansas. He's not too far from Dodge City. So, card laid is a card played.
Yeah.
Old West rules.
Yeah. No bet on my part because I don't understand this over and under stuff.
All right. Well,
I'll accept that, Dex, because I'm not a gambler either. And I don't know. I would have to say here's the thing though. Washington's still a team that you don't know who they are. The
Right.
Cowboys are not a great football team, and that was their last victory. And it was, they didn't pull it out, but they got some stuff at the end. It was a bit of a game there for a while. I think Dallas, they went for it on 4th down and ended up giving the ball back.
that
to
ridiculous
Washington,
punt, fake punt.
Point. Yeah, and then I think, and also keep this in mind. I got a feeling that those players in Dallas do not care for their coach at all. I think that they see him as a big blowhard and the guy that, the smartest guy in the room and all that, and he's
I agree
them
with
off.
that.
So you can't really judge what Washington has done against the Cowboys. And at the same time, you're looking at Pittsburgh, and I think Pittsburgh had an off game against Baltimore. I mean, there's no other either that or Pittsburgh isn't really that good because they played the B team and almost got beat.
Yeah.
But I'm because Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh, and for whatever reason they don't have to travel. They're going to be playing up there. I'm going to have to. My judgment tells me, better judgment tells me that Pittsburgh will win this football game. But it's still important for Washington to go out there and give it all they got, because anything can happen and they can still win this division. They've got some tough teams coming up, and you got to knock somebody off here that's got a winning record. It's going to be a playoff team, and that's going to you don't. I'm not saying I'm thinking about next year, but to stay in this hunt in the NFC East is and they're really, instead of hunting grizzly bears, they're hunting field mice in the NFC East. But they got to stay focused and do what they got to do. And I think that Coach Rivera will have them ready to play, and we'll see. And I think this is the test for everybody: is the team that you watch play in Dallas, are they that team? Because if they can't rush the passer and Pittsburgh starts moving the ball in the air, and if they shut down Gibson, then it's going to be thrown on onto Alex Smith. I don't know. We just got to wait and see. There's too much stuff. There's too many variables out there to make any kind of prediction that you think is really going to happen.
Well, absolutely. So next time we get together, we will have that result, and we also would expect to have a Chongo sighting or possibly Chongo steaks that Riggo will have prepared for the next time we get together next Tuesday.
I got one more question.
One more from Big Dex.
John, now when Joe Gibbs came to talk you back in, why didn't you have him out at the tent or at your place there?
That's a good question, Dex. At the time I was living, he would have had to pay the price to get to me out there. Then I'd have known for sure he was for real. Yeah, that's I just didn't think of it. That's all I can say. Yeah, I'm hoping to see Chongo in the next few days. By the time we get back together, you never know though. I did cut some firewood this morning, so I might have a big roaring fire. So far, I've had a cold camp. I haven't had any fires other than the stove. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and the hunt for Chongo continues, and I'm starting as soon as I leave. And all I can tell you right now is Riggo out.